This is Ethiopia's Mercy Tribe, where young women pierce and stretch their bottom lips as a symbol of feminine beauty. Why? Well, you'll have to stay tuned, as not only will we be checking out curious beauty standards from around the world, but also people who have extraordinary conditions that make them uniquely beautiful. Alright, these are people with the rarest beauty around the world. Blocked nose. Noses, we all have them. Except for me, I don't. But point is, for many Western women, the smaller the snout, the better. However, for the women of India's Apatani tribe, a more, distinguished sniffer is preferable. How so? Well, one look at an Apatani woman and I think you'll know just what I mean. Yep, what you're seeing is what's called yapping holo, or put simply, wooden plugs that are pierced into the sides of the nostrils. Talk about having a stuffed nose. But not only do the Apatani women stretch their noses, they tattoo their faces too. Typically with a line going from the center of their forehead to the tip of their nose, and 5 lines going from their lower lip to their chin. Which, by the way, is done by mixing pig's fat with soot and hammering it into the skin with a thorny plant. And you think Western tattoos seem painful? Interestingly, wood-wedged noses and facial tattoos weren't originally intended to be a mark of beauty. Rather the opposite, in fact. But why would they deliberately make themselves less attractive? Well, historically, the Apatani tribe coexisted with numerous other tribes who would abduct the women due to their natural beauty. So making themselves less conventionally attractive made them less of a target. Damn. Over time, however, these body mods became so commonplace that they're now a hallmark of Apatani beauty. That being said, the Indian government banned nose plugs in the early 1970s to give young Apatani women a better chance of finding employment and avoiding discrimination. So it's mostly the older generation that still retain their distinctive look. Maybe I should try it. My impeccable beauty is always getting me into trouble. Lip filler. These days, cosmetic procedures such as lip lifts and filler are all the rage. The bigger the lip, the better, according to Western beauty standards. That said, one African tribe has their own version of a lip filler. Dwelling in an isolated region of Ethiopia, you might stumble upon the Mercy tribe. They're pretty easy to spot considering the tribe's women wear these huge lip plates. That's right, when a Mercy girl becomes of age at around 15 or 16, her mother will make a hole in her lower lip and hold it open with a sodden plug until it heals. Over the next few months, the young Mercy girl's lip will be incrementally stretched with increasing sizes of wooden plates. Impressively, these can reach up to 12 inches in diameter. Having experienced this, one can only imagine childbirth to be a breeze to the Mercy woman. Now, of course, these lip plates aren't all that practical, particularly when it comes to speech, so they're typically worn by unmarried and newlywed women and reserved for special occasions, but when the plates aren't being worn, Mercy women are left with very loose bottom lips. Man, just the thought of getting that thing caught up in places is giving me nightmares. Of course, it seems bizarre to us, but to the Mercy tribe it not only symbolizes beauty, but a woman's commitment to her husband. Because nothing says I love you quite like a dangly lip. Aww. Pearly blacks. By the year 2026, the teeth whitening industry in the US alone is projected to be worth a whopping $8.2 billion. With those numbers, it's fair to say that a pearly white smile is a big beauty standard. However, you'll be surprised to learn that in some cultures, white teeth are less desirable. For centuries in Japan, a common beauty practice was what's known as ohaguro, or in layman terms, blackening of the teeth. Yep, both men and women would mix ferric acetate, vinegar, and tannins from tea and vegetables to create a black solution known as kanemizu. This was then applied to the teeth to make them as black as possible, and it would begin around age 15 to symbolize a person coming of age. But what's the deal here? Why would they want black teeth? Well, back then in Japan, objects that were pitch black in color were seen as beautiful. Therefore, the idea was that blackening one's teeth would make them beautiful too. However, come the Meiji era in the late 1800s, Japan opened up to Western influence and, in an attempt to modernize the country, the government banned cultural practices that may have seemed strange to Westerners, meaning ohaguro was oha gone. And while it's sad that the Japanese government at the time was ashamed of this cultural quirk, still to this day some geisha and maiko are still rocking ohaguro. You go, girls! Pain is beauty. Almost everyone has at least one scar on their body, and you can guarantee that it comes paired with an elaborate war tale. True or not? But while scars may often be seen as unsightly in certain African tribes, scars are deliberately made in the name of beauty. Hard to believe, but in Ethiopia's Bodi and Surma tribes, South Sudan's Nuer tribe, and Uganda's Karamojong tribe, people's bodies are intentionally filled with complex patterns of scars as a way of showing tribal identity. While the process of scarification varies from tribe to tribe, it's typically ceremonial and is done as a rite of passage when a person meets certain milestones like puberty or marriage. Similar to a charm bracelet, a person will continue to collect scars their entire life, symbolic of their personal journey. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, the process of being scarred isn't a particularly pleasant one. The patterns are created over an extended period of time with both razor blades and thorns. Pain is beauty, right? Though it's due to this very act of endurance that the scars symbolize a person's strength and beauty, despite the process potentially leading to a variety of diseases such as hepatitis B, tetanus, and HIV. Yikes! Nevertheless, if the person expresses any pain during scarification, they'll bring shame upon their whole family. Worse yet, a person who chooses not to be scarred will often be excluded from the tribe and banned from certain duties. Because of all this, the act has proven incredibly controversial. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The Himba tribe. For many people, hair is one of their biggest weapons of self-expression. The styles I used to have back when I had my dearly departed hair. Yeah, Belly, I had it first. Anyway, hair, it seems, is just as important to the women of Africa's Himba tribe as it is to us. But first, who are the Himba tribe? Well, they're a 50,000-strong semi-nomadic tribe who have lived in northern Namibia for centuries. The most distinctive thing about the tribe is its women, whose hair is braided and coated in a red clay-like paste known as ochais. Made using the resin of the amazumba shrub, the animal fat, and ground red pigment stone, ochais is speculated to have been created to protect their skin and hair from the sun. However, it's mainly used now for aesthetic purposes, giving it a characteristic red shade, which FYI is said to symbolize blood and the essence of life in their culture. Close relatives will spend hours creating elaborate hairstyles on one another, which often incorporate woven hay, goat's hair, and even artificial hair extensions. And the style in which the hair is worn can be indicative of the Himba woman's age, wealth, fertility, social ranking, how many children she has, and her marital status. Kinda like how if you see a woman with this haircut, you know she's in a loveless marriage, drives an SUV, and above all, wants to speak to the manager. Uniquely beautiful hairdos, however, are not just limited to the Himba tribe. I mean, just check out the styles of the Muela people. Not too far from the Himba tribe, the Muela dwell in southern Angola and similarly place a lot of importance on female hairstyles. Using crushed red stone, tree bark, herbs, oils, and most interestingly, cow poop, they concoct a paste that is then applied to the hair. With this, they're able to create unique, thick braids that are called nontombi. These are then usually adorned with dried food, beads, and cowries, creating entirely individual styles. And while they typically wear 4 or 6 nontombis, if you spot someone with 3, it means a family member has passed. Of course, there's no denying how beautiful and unique all this is, though I must say I have a few reservations about the whole cow poop situation. Low hangers. Ear stretching, while particularly trendy in the West during the early 2010s, has been a fairly common body mod in many cultures since ancient times, from Africa's Maasai tribe to King Tut himself. though nobody arguably ever did it quite as dramatically as the Dayak women. Native to Borneo, Dayak is a loose term for over 200 ethnic groups, each with its own dialect, customs, and cultures. And although it's largely considered outdated now, one custom that's particularly associated with the Kayan subgroup of Dayak people is the elongation of women's earlobes. Beginning around age 4, a young girl's ears would be pierced and a hisang, which is a heavy bronze or silver ring, would be placed in each one. As the girl got older, more and more hisangs would be added to her ears until they looked something like this. Now there's some low hangers. It might look painful, and that's because, well, it is. But pain is the name of the game here, as it shows a woman's patience and ability to withstand suffering, which are noble qualities. Champ stamps. Sure, that tat on your arm might represent your family's dead dog. However, for many cultures, specifically Maori culture, tattoo designs date back centuries and can literally represent a person's whole ancestral background. The Maori people, if you didn't already know, are the indigenous people of New Zealand who arrived there from East Polynesia in the early 1300s. Settling there, isolated from any other cultures, they developed their own unique way of life, language, crafts, performing arts, and mythology. And as part of their belief system, they regarded the head as being the most sacred part of the body. Due to this, facial tattoos, or as it's called, tamoko, became a big part of Maori identity. Traditionally, various tamoko designs were used to indicate a person's knowledge, skill, and even eligibility to marry, in which case I'd have none. However, these days, most modern Maori people with facial tattoos choose designs that represent their ancestry. Designs, while varied, tend to follow the same patterns of lines, spirals, and swirls that are commonly across the nose, cheeks, and lower jaw. The idea being that the lines of moko accentuate the natural expressions of the face. Not only that, but the main lines in a Maori tattoo are called manawa, aka heart, which the Maori people believe to be a representation of a person's life journey. Before European influence with tattoo guns, the traditional way of tamoko was done by mixing soot with oil and hammering it into the skin using a broad-toothed comb. Bearing in mind that these tattoos are on the face, ouch, I think I'll stick to my tramp stamp. Thank you very much. A pain in the neck. It might sound odd, but having a long neck is often considered attractive, exuding a sense of elegance and giving balance to a person's proportions. And while I, for one, would look like E.T. if I had a long neck, the Kayan people take the length of a woman's neck very seriously. Who are they, you ask? Well, the Kayan people, not to be confused with the Kayan Dayak people from Borneo, are a tribe that mainly reside in Myanmar and are a subgroup of the Red Karen people, which no, is not a tribe of red-headed Karens, though that would be terrifying. Anyway, as mentioned, neck length is particularly important to Kayan women, so they do something pretty bizarre. Starting around age 5, multiple heavy brass rings are fitted to their neck. More and more are gradually added until eventually the weight of them pushes down their collarbone, which compresses the rib cage and creates the illusion of a longer neck. Okay, admittedly that one was a Photoshop job, but it illustrates my point pretty effectively. And their necks still reach seemingly impossible levels, albeit with some pretty serious health implications. Not only does it cause injury to the spine, back, and neck, but it deforms the collarbone. And besides that, the rings make day-to-day life incredibly impractical, given that the women can't even tilt their heads forwards or backwards and have to drink using a straw. So why the heck do the Kayan women do this? Well, the truth is, no one really knows. While some anthropologists theorize that it may have began as a way to look more attractive, others think it might have been to do the opposite. That is, similar to the Apatani tribeswomen, to make them less attractive so they were less likely to be abducted by other tribes. That being said, the Kayan women themselves, who are also unaware of its origins, believe the reason is simply due to cultural identity and beauty. Either that or they're just secretly very scared of vampires. But competition time now, and if you want to be in the running for winning absolutely nothing, aside from notifications whenever I post, then go ahead and spank that subscribe button. And while you're at it, give that like button a little sugar too. Now, while we've spent the first half of the video checking out the unique customs of cultures around the world, in the second half we're going to snoop on some individuals who were born with rare but extraordinarily beautiful conditions. Ready? Let's go. Bearded beauty. Self-love is unfortunately something many struggle with. Of course, I don't. After all, what's more self-obsessed than creating a YouTube channel? But our next uniquely beautiful person is someone who knows the struggle of self-love all too well. Meet Harnam Kaur, a Punjabi woman from the UK. Harnam has polycystic ovary syndrome, which in simple terms is when the female body produces an increased number of male hormones known as androgens. This means Harnam is able to grow a rather impressive beard. And while that of course can be one of the most distinctive symptoms, the condition also causes irregular menstruation, fertility issues, weight gain, and even hair loss. Harnam was just 12 years old when she was first diagnosed with PCOS, and as she gradually developed facial hair throughout puberty, she sadly found herself a victim of bullying. She relentlessly attempted different ways to remove her beard, but nothing worked, leaving the poor girl severely unhappy. Fortunately though, Harnam eventually realized that what seemed to be a curse might actually be a blessing. And with that, she began to embrace her beard. In fact, she now makes a living championing body positivity. And Harnam is certainly making waves, as not only was she the first bearded woman to walk the runway at London Fashion Week in 2016, but she even holds the world record for youngest woman with a full beard. The funny thing is, I guarantee there are some pathetic guys out there that would still discriminate against her, when they themselves have the facial hair of a prepubescent boy. Winner Winnie. Oftentimes we assume supermodels are quote-unquote perfect in every way. However, one model who's tearing up the rulebook of Western beauty standards is Miss Winnie Harlow. Winnie, who is of Jamaican ancestry, was first diagnosed with the condition vitiligo at just 4 years old. This, if you didn't know, is a chronic autoimmune disorder that causes patches of skin to lose color. The condition can be segmental, whereby it only affects one area of the body, or as in Winnie's case, non-segmental, meaning it affects multiple areas of the body and is somewhat symmetrical. In either cases, vitiligo occurs when melanocytes, those being skin cells that create pigment, are attacked and destroyed, resulting in the skin developing to be a milky white color. Vitiligo equally affects all races, and roughly 0.5 to 1% of all people have it, but it's more noticeable on people with darker skin tones such as Winnie's. As mentioned, vitiligo is an autoimmune disorder, which is when a person's immune system incorrectly attacks healthy tissue. Unfortunately, this makes people with vitiligo more at risk of developing other autoimmune disorders. Still, despite this, plus the constant bullying during her childhood that eventually led to depression, Winnie never gave up. Nope, instead she decided to use her unique condition and natural beauty to her advantage when she appeared on America's Next Top Model in 2014. Admired for her unapologetic confidence, she's since gone on to have a successful career as a model and a spokesperson on body positivity. Guess you could call her Winnie the Winner, even if she did place 6th on Next Top Model. No shade. Lush bush. For many women and men, manicured eyebrows are extremely important. And while styles come and go, a neat kempt brow is typically the desired look. Well, that is for most. Sophia Hajipantelli, you see, likes to do things a little different. Raised in Maryland, Sophia decided to quit the tweezing and grew out her monster of a monobrow. In an interview, she claimed there was actually no specific reason for her monobrow other than the fact that she's always embraced being different, be it through her hair, makeup, clothes, or her extremely lush bush. That is her monobrow, just to clarify, okay? And while her brow does attract a lot of negative attention, to the point she regularly receives death threats, it's undoubtedly paved the way for her modeling career due to its incredibly unique appeal. Not only that, but she even has a following of over 500,000 on Instagram. Safe to say that Sophia certainly had the last laugh on all of her haters, which I can tell you is a great feeling. I know, it's hard to believe, but even a dashing hunk like me gets hate sometimes. By eye. They say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and while that might be true, this next girl's beauty is in, well, her own eye. Meet Amina Ependieva. The young girl from Chechnya, as you probably noticed, has distinctly different colored eyes. One a piercing icy blue and the other a deep and warm-toned brown. But how is this possible? Well, Amina has a unique condition called heterochromia, which causes a person's eyes to be different colors with, fortunately, no other vision or health implications. Interestingly though, while very rare in humans, affecting just 1% of the population, heterochromia is relatively more common in animals such as dogs, cats, and horses. But it's not just heterochromia that makes Amina rare. You might have also noticed that she's albino. Now, it's pretty common knowledge that albinism causes a person to have characteristically white hair and pale skin, but why does it occur? Well, put simply, it's due to the body either not producing enough melanin or none at all. Melanin is what gives skin, hair, and eyes pigment, so the darker someone's skin tone, the more melanin they have. Interestingly, because melanin is involved in the development of the retina, albinism can also affect a person's vision. This can lead to conditions such as photophobia, which is a sensitivity to light, or nystagmus, where the eyes move involuntarily. Now, heterochromia and albinism are not directly linked, but the combination might explain why Amina has such unique eyes. Either way, safe to say, Amina won the genetic lottery twice. Kitty Caton. From their striking eyes to their natural poise, cats, despite their defiant attitude, are often revered for their beauty. Be that as it may, you wouldn't want to actually look like a cat, right? Well, this next uniquely beautiful person might change your mind about that. This, folks, is Caton Stickles. Her condition, which is called Schmidt-Fraccaro syndrome, often gets nicknamed cat eye syndrome because it causes individuals to develop a somewhat cat-like appearance. Though due to it being caused by an abnormality in chromosome 22, there are many more potential implications such as a cleft palate, cardiac defects, hernias, kidney issues, and even intellectual disability. Nevertheless, Caton has made the most of her unique looks and proudly flaunts them to her Instagram following of nearly 50,000. Not only that, but she makes a living as a model championing diversity and inclusivity. So against all odds, Caton is making the very best of her cat eye syndrome. And while we're on the topic of eyes, check out Ukrainian model and artist Maria Oz. Believe it or not, she doesn't have any specific condition, just huge eyes. Needless to say, her beauty is undeniable. But it's led some people to question the authenticity of the photos she posts, claiming they've been edited. Maria denies these claims vehemently, and I gotta say, I'm with her. I mean, she's got a lot of pics, and her eyes remain uniform across them all. Ain't that a chat-up line and a half? I'm a Barbie girl in the real world. Despite setting utterly unrealistic beauty standards for many women, the Barbie doll has the dream body. So lots of women strive to have glowing, blemish-free faces, luscious locks, and teeny tiny waists. But taking this to the extreme is this next lady. Allow me to introduce you to 35-year-old Angelica Kanova, or as she's better known, the Russian Barbie doll. Yep, with wide eyes, voluminous golden hair, and a 20-inch waist, Angelica is probably the closest human to resembling a Barbie doll without cosmetic surgery. So how exactly did she reach these minuscule proportions? Well, this is where things take a somewhat disturbing turn. Since birth, her mother Natalia has treated and dressed Angelica like a doll, whilst also spoiling her with the best toys and education that money could buy. Only all this luxury has come at a huge cost to Angelica's freedom. Under the strict rule of her mother, Angelica not only has to train for 3 hours 5 times per week to maintain her petite proportions, but she's not allowed to buy clothes without her mother's permission, or even go on dates without her mother being present. I mean, what could be more romantic than a candlelit dinner invaded by a middle-aged Russian woman? Angelica's image and entire life is completely manufactured by her controlling mother, leaving her admittedly immature and unprepared for the real world. Still, she hopes to be able to, quote, break free and start an independent life one day, a chilling reminder that there's more to life than the pursuit of beauty. And that, folks, is all from me today. Let me know in the comments whose beauty intrigued you the most, and, as always, thanks for watching.